is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Season is starting to draw to a close here on the RaceSpotTV Friday primetime, live on the iRacing Esports Network. It's the IMSA Online Sportscar Championship, the penultimate round from Daytona, Florida, coming at you just after this.
And he hits him again now! Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Race lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside as Trunkgate goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though.
Slide left of the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Makashube, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
It's Roval Racing time here on RaceSpotTV for the RaceSpotTV Friday primetime. I am Connery Maddock, and joining me in the commentary booth today will be Stephen Burbage. Very, very welcome to everyone deciding to join our stream today. And thanks very much to Hugo Luis being behind the cameras. TV cameras provided by Istvan Ballo. And then we've got other names, Andreas Werner, Simon Grossman, and Nick Pisson also helping us out with all the tools that we have here on RaceSpotTV. But looking at the track stats, looking at those weather temperatures as well, it's going to be a pretty clear day here in Daytona. 26 degrees Celsius in the air. That's going to result in a track temperature that's actually just dipping above 40 degrees Celsius. Winds relatively stable, 15 kilometers an hour, just getting a little bit up there. But Stephen, this race, it's the second to last on the season here, so this one is going to be absolutely brilliant no matter which way you cut it. A track that's also a very, very great equalizer in terms of it's not technically challenging, which does mean that the fields are going to be a lot closer, so we might even see quite a bit of side-by-side action.
Oh, I'm sure we'll see the side-by-side action, but kind of what we were talking about earlier before the broadcast got started was just reminiscing it back to the Daytona 24 on iRacing we had back in January, February time, and going over kind of what are the things we saw then and some of the things we might see today. The biggest thing one of the things we were talking about was how the traffic, when you're stuck behind other classes and you're hitting that infield, it's real tight, even though it's not the most technical, and figuring out how you're going to get around it, and maybe some drivers getting impatient if they have another driver chosen behind them.
Up on your screen right now, we have the top 3 in qualifying from each class. We've still got a minute out there in this qualifying session to get some of the other positions further down the order sorted. We're on board right now with Daniel Johnson there that is on his second lap representing the club UK and Ireland. That Precision Sim Engineering sponsored car is just going to head its way through the NASCAR turns right now. This is where the drafts will be absolutely huge in all 3 classes, and then down towards the bus stop he'll go. This will be one of the many heavy braking zones out here on track. We'll continue to run on board with Johnson as he feeds that Daytona prototype all the way through the bus stop. You got to be careful on the exit there, not to step a foot out of line and get yourself a slowdown penalty. Daniel Johnson, P number 4 at this moment in time with a 139.488. Needs to improve about I'd say a tenth of a second to get himself up inside of that top 3. Drive to the line for Johnson, and is he going to be able to improve? The answer to that one's going to be no. A good couple of seconds off the pace as he heads his way across the line. Actually ran out of fuel there in his qualifying, so you know, not able to go for that second lap as Herode then heads his way across the line. Not able to set a qualifying time for the number 34, so that is going to be a little bit of a concern. We've got Diego Canella here as well in the number 29 GTE machine. He's got about 10 seconds remaining, so I don't think he's going to find his way out of turn number 4 and get towards start-finish line. He's going to run out of time before he gets there, so he'll have to start down in P number 14 in those GTE standings as qualifying draws itself to a close then on the penultimate round of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship, and this is how your grid looks. In your Daytona prototypes, Carl Janssen taking pole position there for Radicals Online, with Michele Constantini lining up right next to him on the front row. The Hugh Jass racing car, David Haynes there starting P number 3 with Daniel Johnson, P number 4. Then on that third row of Daytona prototypes, it's Stander Sentinel and Joseph Ringrose with the car of Dennis Neidhart. Unfortunately, not setting a lap time. He'll have to start at the back of that Daytona prototype field. But then you cycle things back to GTEs, who have been so exciting throughout this season, and that doesn't look to change in this one, because we've got Antiola pole position for Finland. We've got Benjamin Gonzalez there, P number 2. Jan Sinkowski with Thibaut Kazubon bringing things down to P number 4 in that particular field. We've got Tim Graven, we've got Julia Bruce Albert, Matteo Ugolotti and Nicholas Laubich bringing things down to P number 8 on that grid. Carl Becker, P9 with Michele D'Alessandro there, P number 10. Andy Gorton, P number 11. Mohamed Patel as well, P number 12. Only 0.6 of a second behind your race leader, and we're already down towards P number 13. Bruno Fontalba, Diego Campanella there, as well as Giancarlo Bartolini with Guido Llantos, 0.9 of a second behind your leader. So your entirety of your qualifying grid in GTEs, all within a second, at least those that have set lap times. Joel Guez and Dustin Herode, they will have to start on the final row. But looking into GT3s, Soren Kolosjic there in the pole position. Sergej Maturana with Smolajic and Micklemore lining up P number 4. We've got Yannick Danish, P number 5. Lewis Goodway and Yuki Furuya there, P number 7. Sasha Engelhardt, P number 8. With also Daniel Molden, Ari Niemanen, James McRitchie and Anthony Delahaye further back. Christian Booth, we've got Joao Oliveira as well to round out your entire grid for today's race, as we've got the pace car already making its way down towards NASCAR turns 3 and 4 with the prototype field in relatively quickly in tow. Time for these guys getting themselves spread out on this initial start, as we'll take the green flag pretty quickly here at Daytona. They started just before the bus stop, so not a lot of time to get yourself settled for this race, and one that may potentially be very close quarters indeed, especially with how close those qualifying times are, especially in GTEs. Everyone within a second on their qualifying. But we look towards the front of the Daytona prototype field. Is going to be Carl Janssen leading the way once that pace car comes down on towards the lane, and then they get themselves on the brakes into turn number 1. A very tricky entry to the first corner on the circuit, but Carl Janssen goes pretty much straight away. We're going to be green flag racing here at Daytona, all filing straight in line are the Daytona prototypes as they hit the brakes down in towards turn number 1. No early challenges for position just yet in that particular field. They'll get themselves going, but GTEs though, Antiola coming under threat from Gonzalez down in towards turn number 1, side by side further back for P number 3 as no, there's P number 2 getting spun there. Gonzalez back into the traffic.
And
he
more.
got completely spun by Thibaut Casabon. There's more carnage right at the back of the field. We see 3 wide there coming down in towards the International Horseshoe for the first time. There's another car off through the grass as well further back. That's Andy Gorton that's trying to get himself back on the racing circuit, but the thing is he has to let the entirety of the GT3 field by, excuse me. So GTEs, they had a horror start.
Yeah, and that put Gonzalez completely out of contention right off the bat. That is definitely not how he wanted to start today's race.
Oh my god, challenge for the race lead in GT3. Sergej Maturana challenging Kolozdzic down towards the latter end of the midfield, but here comes the car of Smolajic down the inside and actually manages to gain the position up into P number 2 for the number 20 machine as they head their way onto the NASCAR banking for the first time in this event. The GT3 field is where all the action's going to be right now as we see the slipstream in full effect for as we look, towards the prototype field. Carl Janssen trying to get away from Michele Constantini, but the important point for Constantini here, Stephen, is to sit in that slipstream, sit in that tow, even though you may not be as quick as Carl Janssen coming through the infield. As long as you don't drop all too far back, once it comes to getting back onto those NASCAR turns, you're still in contention.
Yes, you are, and you know it's almost a challenge in the game of cat and mouse in that part. And some drivers really get irritated with the draft here because it makes it so hard to get away from the guy behind. Other people love it because it adds another layer of the strategy.
It does add yet another layer as we're looking back in that GTE field right now, which is still very, very close indeed, absolutely nose to tail. We're riding on board right now with Carl Becker, currently trying to challenge the car ahead. That's going to be Cabanella ahead of them. Currently 3.5 tenths of a second between them, as ahead of them it looks like Laubich was going to have a little bit of a look over the Team Bushfink car of Tim Griffin. So this is going to be Pure Racing Team versus Team Bushfink as up, down, through towards the corner. Just as you get yourself back onto the NASCAR banking, we will stick with this battle for the next couple of moments as Laubich sitting in the slipstream, and this is so important because Tim Graven, he doesn't have anything of the sort to help him out in that particular one. So that is going to be the issue as we see the front, well, this at least pack of GTE cars. Here comes Ugolotti though on Carl Becker, having a little look down in towards the bus stop, but not able to complete the move down the inside. They'll still get themselves single file through there, and maybe you can have another shot coming down in towards turn number 1, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, it is about finding that place to make a move and using the draft to your advantage the most you can.
Here we go, number 16. Matthew Ugolotti looking to make the pass, and the pass is looking to be made further forward as well as Laubich tries to get past Tim Graven. So Laubich has passed Tim Graven, but the Ugolotti and Becker battle, that one isn't quite sorted, but I think Becker a little bit too sort of complacent, too tentative on the brakes in towards turn number 1, just kind of lets Ugolotti through. So those are the positions going to be swapped there in those two battles in GTE. But I am very, very curious to see how Janssen and Constantini are doing, because they are still absolutely stuck together like glue. Constantini doing all that he needs to do right now in terms of not letting Carl Janssen get away. He may even be going for the strategy card this early and just sitting behind, just lifting off, saving fuel, which you can gain you can save a lot of fuel here at Daytona. If you have that drafting partner ahead of you, you can pretty much just sit 70-75% throttle coming down all the way through the NASCAR ovals, through the front and back streets as well, and you can save a lot of time in the pits.
Yeah, that is a big thing there, saving fuel. The other thing I was noticing with this particular battle is coming onto the banking from the infield. Janssen definitely is putting the power down a lot better and getting a better run onto the banking. So that might be a little bit of strategy where Constantini is not putting all the throttle in, so that might be the case. Or he's just struggling to get out of that corner. We'll have to wait and see.
We will. He doesn't decide to go for the draft pass into turn number 1, preferring to stick behind and just manage the fuel issues from that position, as the battle for P number 1 in GTE, this one, in GT3, excuse me, this one is going to be starting to heat up. There was a little bit of a challenge on lap number 1 of this race between Kłodziec, you got Smolczyk there, and you've got Maturana. So the two drivers with probably the most difficult names for an English speaker to pronounce right at the front of the GT3 field, but we'll work through that one as Smolczyk then draft down towards turn number 1, looks at the inside, but deciding not to go for it at this early stage. But it's a slight mistake from your GT3 race leader coming through there. That's Kłodziec. He's gonna manage to recover for that one, manage to plant himself still on the front of this train. Smolczyk though up towards the International Horseshoe. Look at the move from behind though. Sasha Engelhardt deciding to get themselves involved then. So they'll take it side by side with Sergej Maturana up towards their king. Maturana's going to slip back in line, but only just. He didn't really have a lot of room to work with there, but judged it to perfection. And he manages to stay ahead as Engelhardt, gone so deep. Well held there for Maturana to keep that car from spinning around. Does lose the position to Joel Guez, but wow, that was a massive save there for Maturana. He was completely the innocent party in that one. Engelhardt completely ran into the back of him, but the car control to sort of make sure that car didn't spin around, that was brilliant.
That was, I mean, it almost looked intentional. It's just the way he just carried the momentum through the corner. I mean, lost the position, but I mean, very minimal wheel spin, very minimal angle. So that was an amazing recovery save right there.
I mean, I guess it is a track which is pretty used to having amazing saves going through these NASCAR bank turns, but perhaps not in these GT3 cars. It has to be argued, but still well held there for Maturana. We're seeing a change for position in your prototypes though. That one's going to be Senhal versus Neidhart, as Neidhart manages to make his way through. We've got Joseph Ringrose planted in that purple car right at the front of this train as well, so they've pretty quickly got disposed of Senhal here, so I don't know if Stander is having a couple of issues, maybe getting around this circuit. We've got Ringrose pushing very, very right through the sort of second hairpin that we have here on the Daytona infield, trying to defend position from Neidhart, as Neidhart looks very close to the back of Ringrose coming through the left, but he'll have to push out wide and get himself onto NASCAR banking. But the thing is, since the draft is so powerful coming through here, he's not going to have the issue of dropping off the back just yet. But looking at your prototype race lead then, Carlo Janssen just hasn't managed to shake off Michele Constantini. They were pretty close in qualifying, about a 1/10 of a second, and you could say maybe a 1/10 of a second is a bit bigger here than it may be at some other tracks. But here comes Constantini then. Is he going to go for the fuel call, or is he going to try and gain the track position? The fuel call is made from Constantini. So this is the exact plan that Constantini has now. He doesn't want to be ahead at this stage. He just prefers to sit there and think about the long game.
Yeah, the long game is what you have to do in this series. I mean, you can't win it in turn 1. You have to think, how am I going to make that move in those final stages of the race?
Yeah, looking back in your GTE field, excuse me, that's Laubish up high, getting absolutely freight trained on the inside by Ugolotti and Cabanella. And I have to argue, those two cars could have been maybe bumper drafting on that inside to try and get themselves past. Laubish manages to slot his way in, but these cars are absolutely stacked. Oh, so close, coming down towards turn number 1. Ugolotti has to push a little bit wide, allows Cabanella through. Laubish will challenge him down towards the International Horseshoe as well. It have to be the outside line for the Porsche against the Ferraris on the inside. What can Laubish do? He's not able to do anything about Ugolotti. Is he able to stay ahead of Giulio Pro's Albert? That is the question. He does manage to slot himself in, but that was pretty sketchy coming down towards turn number 1, especially for Ugolotti there, as he had a little bit of a moment going down onto the brakes into turn number 1. We've heard that Tim Graven has actually lost it somewhere out there on circuit. That's one of the mid-pack runners in your GTE field. I think that was coming down towards turn number 1. It was contact from behind. Carl Becker running into the back of him. Just as you were commentating at what was at the front of that train, they had trouble at the rear of the train as well.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was struggling there. It looks like he got a little help there from the Porsche.
Yeah, a little bit of help from behind, and you'll get that car spun all the way back around and continue on with his race. But back to the live pictures then, as we'll continue to see these GTE cars work their way around. It's still leading pack though. You're leading pack of 3. We've got Antihola, we've got Jan Sinkowski, and we've got Thibaut Kazubon as well. And Kazubon was the, at least from my view, the guilty party in that lap 1, turn 1 incident that these GTE machines had. And it has resulted in Benjamin Gonzalez, unfortunately, retiring from this race. So that is an absolutely huge shame for him. We're riding on board right now, P number 7 in your Daytona prototype field. This is Dennis Neidhart. He has two cars right ahead of him that he could potentially overtake when all is said and done. But the pace for these cars right at the back of the Daytona prototype field has been rather inconsistent. Sometimes they've gotten fantastic laps, and sometimes they've just been completely off the pace. So the lap time's definitely fluctuating right at the back of this pack. But Neidhart will dive into the double toe of the 2 Daytona prototypes ahead of him and get that superior overspeed down in towards the bus stop. He will close in. He's got about a couple of kilometers an hour advantage down towards the bus stop, but not able to bring it on the wrong side just yet. Go on.
Connor, I got to interrupt you because it looks like might have a battle for the lead here brewing up for Daytona prototypes.
It's been there and thereabouts. I think Constantini's still going with the get the jump in the pit stop strategy rather than anything else here. So
I don't know.
I find it unlikely that Constantini would want to bring it side by side at this point when he knows that he's saving a huge amount more fuel than Carly Jansen. Why take the risk of going side by side with him and perhaps putting one or both into the barrier?
I'm not sure if it's too much of taking a risk. Jensen's really starting to kind of fall off his rhythm. He's getting a lot more loose coming out of the corners, and locking him up coming into the corners. I think he's cracking under the pressure.
Could be, although Radicals Online, they actually won the Daytona 24-hour race here last time out, so they're very, very experienced when it comes to these sorts of races in prototypes. And of course here at Daytona as well, with that 24-hour race win, as we have had to change for position further back in the Daytona prototypes, though. Excuse me, not a change of position, it was a challenge for position, as Sethnal really does try to hound the back of Joseph Ringrose right now, but he's just being unsuccessful in doing so, and it is just allowing Dennis Neidhart to start to close back in, start to try and do something about the 2 cars ahead. But Senhal will have a potential look down in towards the bus stop. Middle of the road for Ringrose. Let Senhal choose whichever lane that they want. Outside is going to be the choice, but Ringrose has completely overshot the bus stop. That's a slowdown penalty if I ever saw one. He'll still try to challenge on the exit, but he has to get that penalty served or risk the stop-go penalty as Senhal looks for the outside. I don't think Ringrose has served this penalty just yet, unless he's gotten very, very lucky. Oh, Smolajek, that was Engelhardt there, getting a helpful draft from his teammate.
Yeah, and that's what you want to do when you got a teammate out there in front. Use the draft, work together, pull away from the rest of the traffic. And I mean, that is a good way to give yourself some breathing room, especially here at Daytona.
Yeah, exactly. As the 2 teammates will get themselves off and ahead in front of this GT3 train, and they've got a pretty strong position at the front of this one now because they can work together. They can help each other in terms of keeping Smolajek and Lewis Goodway and Sergei Maturana behind. It's still quite a considerable train at the front of GT3s, but that can very easily be disrupted by the likes of pit stops. We have 1 scheduled stop for all 3 classes here today. The usual iRacing official IMSA rules kicking into effect there, as Maturana, we're riding on board with him right now. He's currently 5th in the line in that particular battle right at the front of your GT3 trains. They will continue on their way down towards the bus stop, as I don't think anyone's going to be close enough to challenge down into here, so that is basically going to be the theme for at least this first stint of this race, Stephen, because right now, I think most of the drivers will have in mind is, okay, what can I do in terms of the fuel and, you know, getting myself the best advantage I can in that second stint.
Yeah, there's a few that are, and I think the majority are, but I think you still have a few people who are trying to make those early gains, and then they're going to play a different strategy towards the end. Mainly looking here at the GTE field, in your P4 to I think it's about P7, they're all real tight, but they're still battling quite aggressively.
I tell you what, this is like one of those races where you just have the very, very calm race start, but you just get a sense of feeling that we might be on for a fantastic finish, especially when you've got the lead of all three classes in contention here because of you know, just the overall behavior of this track. We're looking at one of those battles right now. It's going to be Carl Janssen versus Constantini. Janssen actually taking a little bit of a wider line coming up through turn number 1, which is one that Constantini isn't taking. He prefers to stay closer towards that inside, and turn number 1 is probably the trickiest corner on this entire racetrack, Steven, because you are basically turning into the corner while on the brakes as well, and it can be quite bumpy coming through there as well. So you've got so many elements to think about down into what looks to be on paper a relatively simple corner when it very much isn't.
No, it's not, and especially how it tightens right there at the end. I mean, that is the bane of most drivers when they come to challenge this circuit. The big thing here is that, you know, Constantini, his line almost reminds me of like a karting line where he stays to the inside real tight.
Does, and Carl Janssen taking the philosophy, the usual philosophy of wide on entry, get yourself maximum apex speed as possible, and look for the track exit. But Constantini perhaps trying something different in this one as we head towards the bus stop, and he'll continue on with the plan that he has in mind. He has to be so careful on the exit of the bus stop though, because we've seen so many cars in the past just get themselves a slowdown penalty coming through there, and they have to serve that all the way through NASCAR 3 and 4 and down in the front straight as well. So it's certainly not something you want to be doing. I don't think Constantini's going to go for this move, even though it is on if he wants it, but I don't think he wants it at this stage. He's just going to lift out and, you know, play the strategy card, as we've already mentioned, onto the brakes into turn number 1. Finally, both of those cars decide to push wide, but looking further back in your DP field, that's Joseph Ringrose actually making himself known and getting himself through up into P number 6 there over Sethnal. So he's got one position dealt with after having an issue, shall we say, on just a couple of laps ago when he had a moment coming through the bus stop, getting himself a slowdown penalty. So he's starting to recover. I'm trying not to jinx you, Joseph, but he's got himself into a situation down in towards turn number 1. This is Stechnel now coming back on him on his left-hand side, and he's going to cover off the move for the inside, but Ringrose tries to find a space, and find a space he does. He has a little bit of a moment coming through the International Horseshoe, and Stechnel manages to hold position ahead, but that was a potentially sketchy one because Stechnel, after getting that pass done, didn't return to the normal line, quote unquote, and down in towards the International Horseshoe, decided to actually still be covering off that inside line, and Ringrose decided to go for it anyway and almost managed to make it work, but not able to get himself fully past through the corner. So quite aggressive fighting down at the back end of the prototype field here.
It is, and you know, the big winner of this whole battle is Nienhardt, because he is just walking away from those two, and he's already gained 2 positions. So, you know, they keep battling out here at the back with Ringrose and Sentinel. I mean, he might just have an easy race moving forward.
Yeah, could be. There's the first sign, though, that things might just be about to change. Carl Janssen deciding to head his way in from the lead of the Daytona prototype field, and now Michele Constantini, he has a decision to make. Does he dive down in now? I think that might be a pretty good idea considering how close the rear of the GT3 train is. So Carl Janssen down in, getting his service done. Off and away he will go through the green cones and comes out actually behind the battle at the rear of the Daytona prototype field here. So I think he's going to be he might actually even get himself involved in this one with how things might turn out. So Carl Janssen just has to be a little bit careful with these back markers in the Daytona prototypes that have been fighting quite fiercely. Excuse me. So Carl Jansen potentially has a thing to be concerned about, potentially, but I'm more interested in when Michele Constantini is going to head his way in, because he's been playing the strategy of sitting behind your race leader, just getting those fuel numbers down, and if he can have, if he can shave multiple seconds off of his pit stop here, that'll put him out comfortably ahead, and perhaps have no draft of the car behind either. So this is absolutely crucial for Michele Constantini. He has a couple of GT3 cars ahead of him to deal with, as we're on board with Carl Becker right now trying to chase down Mohamed Patel, but in comes Michele Constantini then, the number 15, getting himself stopped for those yellow cones, trying to get every single 10th of a second possible on the entry to the pit lane, and he's got to find his pit box now. It's going to be relatively near the front of the field, P2 in qualifying, so that one's an easy one to spot as he gets himself down and he gets himself stopped. Oh no, Constantini has to stick it in reverse. That might even cancel out the effect of saving fuel all this time, so he has to be careful. Carl Jansen, in the meantime, actually battling with a couple of back markers, which are very much in their right to try to battle, but Jansen has managed to make his way through very comfortably indeed, ahead of Michele Constantini. That's such a crucial mistake on the lane, and has resulted in Constantini losing a potential challenge for the race.
Ringrose is going.
Ringrose has a drift through the International Horseshoe. Okay, this race has changed complexion pretty quickly here between Carl Jansen and Michele Constantini. I'm very curious to see the stop times, actually, because Carl Jansen about a 12.4 second stop. Constantini, though, 12.6. Yes, he spent longer on his pit stall than Carl Jansen did. Maybe that's some weird interaction with the missed box sort of thing, as Carl Jansen, he has pretty big issues right now, because he is getting held up behind Sentinel, and he's going to get potentially held up by GT cars as well, as Jansen follows his fellow Daytona prototype up high, looks in the middle, but you can see the body language of the car. He really wanted to decide to go for that one, but that would be one too many risks to take when you're leading this race and when your competitor has made a mistake on the lane. So Jansen through there for position over Stefanel, but Stefanel hasn't headed his way down on towards the lane just yet. What have you spotted?
No, Neidhart just went sideways all the way through the bus stop on the second half. I didn't know if he was going to hang on to it or if he was going to lose it right there in front of Jansen.
Sketchy moments when it comes to the pit stop phase for your Daytona prototypes, but all the this is in the court of Carl Jansen at this moment in time. He's got a very decent gap over Michele Constantini. Stands at about 2 seconds, and that's a bit too far back to be feeling the majority of the effects from the draft, as Jansen tries to file himself through on yet another fellow Daytona prototype that hasn't pitted yet. That's Neidhart. So Jansen, he's doing what he needs to do. He needs to get past these cars rather quickly, and now he has a huge bunch of clear air ahead of him, whereas Constantini, well, he has one more car to deal with. The rest of the Daytona prototypes then deciding to head their way in. We've got Stefanel, we've got Ringrose that have made their pit stop services and looking to get themselves back out there on circuit, but we've still had no one from GTE, we've had no one from GT3s decide to make their stops yet, so this can still all change, very much so.
Especially with how tight GT3 is. I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all within one mistake of each other.
Yeah, exactly. But on the screen right now, you have those two teammates, the ASD Elite GT3 team. One of them decides to head their way in. Those close. Yeah, go on.
This looks like a repeat from last week, where Engelhart stays out while his teammate goes down to pit lane. So we'll see how this works out this time, because last time Engelhart did not get the position. We'll see if it's a different story today.
I think they're more concerned with working as a team at this moment in time, since the P1 is not secure for them just now, because they have Lewis Goodway and they have Smolajik as well. They're ready, waiting to challenge, waiting to get themselves inside those podium positions. So that's Kozhiak now back off of the lane. Matarana is right on his tail as well here, coming through pit exit, which is also one of the pretty tricky pit exits as well. You have grass on either side. You have a pit wall, which has seen many visitors as well, as we had Joao Oliveira down on towards the lane. What exactly has happened to him? Because I didn't quite see it the first time. Let's see him get himself stopped in his box. Does he overshoot? Nope, he just gets himself in there just fine. Oh, no, he doesn't. He very much doesn't.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no. Yeah. We've seen some weird things on RaceSpotTV Friday primetime before, and actually we've seen something like that before in a previous season. So it's not out of the ordinary, but it's always absolutely hilarious when it does happen.
It's one of those things you really want to have software to count down your pit lane in cases like that, and that would probably help avoid errors.
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes to find your pit box in iRacing because the cars ahead do perhaps block your view of your pit crew, or rather in these GT machines and these prototypes, the lollipop man right at the front of the field, so in front of the stall. So it can be pretty tricky, and you do have software out there that can help you, like Stephen just mentioned. But there we go. There's the flash of the lights from Antiola. We all know what that means. That means get out of the way, any traffic ahead, but that traffic is a little bit far down the road right now for Antiola to be getting annoyed that they're not moving out of the way, as we have David Haynes down on the lane for the huge ass racing car, which is always hilarious to say. He gets a lead lap logged as well before he gets himself stopped in his box, and then he can be off and away in his particular race, in his particular battles as well.
You got a change in GT3.
We do have a little change in GT3.
Oh, and Hayes barely sliding between them.
Yeah, Smolajek has got himself his pit done, though he does graze the pit wall on exit. Here comes the rest of the GT3s then through the first couple of corners, and that has absolutely played dividends for the Smolajek. He went from about 3rd or 4th in line in that battle for the GT3 race lead right to the head of the field. That's a fantastic stop there from the number 20. So Smolajek currently your GT3 race leader, your new GT3 race leader. Engelhardt's going to be P number 2. Klosdiec drops from P number 1 back down to P number 3. So those drivers that appeared later actually going to be helped a lot more here as they got themselves towards the front of the field. Klosdiec was one of the first blinkers down onto the lane for the GT3. Same with Maturana, and they've dropped back. As a result, we've got the lead of your GTE cars, though, down in Antiola, getting himself stopped. That's a missed box, though, from Jan Senkowski. He has to reverse himself back into things as they get the fuel to the end of the race. So Senkowski ready there, ready and waiting. Actually has an okay stop, even though he did miss his box slightly, and gets himself between the green cones. So now, where is Thibaut Kazobon? Because
he's coming out the second part of the infield.
Yes, he is. So that's going to be the stop situation right now for GTEs, because Kazubon hasn't pitted yet. Neither has Giulio Prosalba, neither has Nicholas Laubich. They are the only 3 cars in GT3s yet to head their way in. So that's going to be the story that potentially we're talking about. But side by side for GT3 race lead, Engelhardt has managed to make their way through up into P number 1. Smolajek looking for the inside, though, since Engelhardt outbraked themselves through towards turn number 1. Side by side they will go through the S's, but Smolajek simply doesn't have enough momentum to get himself through. So this GT3 race lead, this one's going to be fantastic all the way to the end with 10 laps to go.
I tell you what, I would not want to be in Smolajek's completely boxed that position, because being between 2 teammates is the most uncomfortable place you can be.
It is. It's a pretty scary place because, you know, you've got the car ahead that you have to get past. You've got the car behind that's going to, you know, help their teammate, help harass the back of your car and make sure that you are focusing on them rather than on trying to get past their teammate ahead. But Giulio Prosalba and Nicholas Laubich then find the lane. Kazubon actually decided to stay out one more lap than the entire rest of the GTE field. Laubich looking for his pit box. We've got Prosalba also getting himself stopped as well. So those will be absolutely okay and get their fuel to the end of the race. Andy Gorton there, you can see coming off the lane as well as Giulio Prosalba gets themselves through towards the green cones. We've got Nicholas Laubich as well coming out, but where is Thibaut Kazubon? He's already made his way through, and well, he hasn't pitted yet, excuse me. So Antiola is going to be the one that we're looking at. He's managed to get through on these guys relatively okay, which is kind of to be expected with his track positioning coming down on towards the lane. So it has spread out this front of the GTE field just a little bit, but the main battle is going to be when Kazubon heads himself in. And he's missed it because look at how slow he's going through NASCAR turns 1 and 2. This is tragedy for Thibaut Kazubon, for that team, for Ford as well. This is so painful, so slow, and I don't think he's going to have enough momentum to get himself back to pit lane, not by a huge margin. He's going to have to pull over, and he's going to have to take the tow back to the lane. One lap too many, Stephen.
Yeah, got greedy with the pit strategy, and it ended the day soon. That is not the way you want the race to go.
It's not, and he was in such a good position as well to try to challenge the race lead, but a little bit of a miscalculation on the fuel, deciding to go that one more lap when he had pretty much, I guess it would have been more like 2/3 of a tank left, as he 2/3 of a lap left, excuse me, as he went on to that final lap, so not able to save enough. And Kazubon, he's had his race ruined because of that one. So Antiola, he can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief here, because the only challenger that he has behind him right now is Jan Sinkowski, and he's right on the tail end of the draft. So Ahola looking very, very, very comfortable indeed for that Vendaval sim racing car. But it still isn't over yet, especially if you're in GT3s, because Sasha Engelhardt is leading the way from Smolarczyk. Smolarczyk's got himself into a pretty good position after his pit stop here and might even look to challenge the race lead coming down towards turn number 1. He will step out of line. He will go up high coming through the trioval, but here comes Klosiec as Engelhardt's teammate on that inside. Smolarczyk has to be very careful about getting trained as Engelhardt tries to push him out wide, and a door being shoved there from Klosiec as the two teammates make their way through.
Yeah, I think that was the worst move Smolarczyk can make, because all he did is he opened it up for the teammates to start drafting, and it was over at that point.
Yeah, that's always the risk that you run when you go high up through the trioval, when you go high through the through turns 1 as well. If the cars behind are following close together, they can just absolutely freight train you down the inside coming through that section of racetrack. And now Smolarczyk, he's gone from challenging P number 1 to being solidly P number 3 right now. But Daniel Johnson in that Daytona prototype behind, he's being relatively patient with these guys, just letting them fight it out before he can get past through these NASCAR turns and down the back straight as well. As he will do so, he will look to the high side on the lap traffic here, diving back in to get whatever remains of the draft, but we'll have those GT3 cars step towards the high line and let him through, as there's a swap for position between the two teammates here for the race lead of your GT3s. Klosiec then getting himself back to the pointy end of the field, which is where he was before the cycle of pit stops. Oh, Smolarczyk! Oh, that is so close there coming through the exit of the bus stop. Engelhardt was so slow coming through that section. Smolarczyk thought he had an opportunity, and he very much did, but this is brought Guido Jantos there in a GTE car. He might have something to say about how this battle turns out, even though it's not his battle to fight. But look at that, the runs are so equal between the GT3E cars and the GT3 cars in a straight line, or at least in this particular example, as Santos will just have to wait to get himself the lap traffic over and done with. A Smolarczyk looks for the inside through 1, shoves Engelhardt to the outside, and Engelhardt's around.
Yeah, he could not be happy about that. I think it was probably a little bit of payback from earlier on where he got a little doored, but I think it's probably a little more aggressive than we like to see, at least coming back.
It is, and maybe you can understand the retaliatory move, shall we say, because it was Engelhardt that pushed him out wide through turn number 1 last time he tried to challenge around the outside. That was for the race lead that time, and maybe pay back down and towards turn number 1. That's the question you have to ask. He did have a gap. He did have a lane on the inside there, and Engelhardt trying to take the normal race line. So I don't really want to call that one either way, believe it or not. I just feel that the lane was there for Smolarczyk to head his way in. He did bring it alongside before, well, inside the braking zone. So we can debate that one, but I'm erring more on the side of Racing Instant, even though that was a brave move.
Yeah, and that's where I was kind of thinking of it. Like, wouldn't say that Schmalzig wanted Engelhart to get spun. I think he wanted to make sure he had the position, was okay putting a door, but I don't think he intended for the impact to be what it was.
That's just sometimes close quarters racing in a nutshell. If you're wondering how the battle for the prototype lead is going, well, that's a dominant affair for Carl Janssen right now, as Constantini 6.8 seconds behind your Daytona prototype race leader. So very, very comfortable right now for Janssen as he tries to deal with Antiola, which is your GTE race leader. So two class leaders in one piece of tarmac. As go on, Steven.
Antiola did not want to let Janssen by on the infield, and Janssen was not happy about it.
Not very happy. Ola not understanding the universal driver signal of move out of the way, the flashing lights, as the Daytona prototype I don't think have that ability. So that might be the issue. The Daytona don't have flashing lights, therefore they have a harder time in traffic, right?
It might be.
Maybe. Maybe. Oh, there we go. There are flashing lights on the prototypes. I just didn't see them, as we'll head our way into the final 10 minutes of this race right now. And what's your overall assessment of how things have gone so far, Tim?
Well, I mean, outside of a little bit of chaos at the beginning, it's very much become a strategy play, and we've really seen the pit lane strategy make or break drivers. We saw it at the race lead with the Daytona prototypes. Constantini made that crucial mistake overshooting his pit lane. We saw Kazabaum make the crucial pit lane mistake, staying out too late, not pitting soon enough. So I mean, pit strategy seems to be the make or break today.
It does seem to be. Well, watching the battle for P number 10 in GTEs though. Tim Graven versus Carl Becker right now, as we did feature Carl Becker just a little bit earlier on in the race. He got a little bit of airtime here on RaceSpotTV, but now he has to try to deal with this battle. We're on board with Tim Graven right now, currently looking from the back of his car. And let's see if Carl Becker does decide to challenge. A little bit of a lock-up there for Tim Graven down in towards the International Horseshoe, but able to recover, able to get a decent line through there regardless of what happened. And he'll get himself this position defended all the way through the infield, as Carl Becker does back off just a little bit. But into the last 7 minutes of this race right now. And an important point to note is actually for GT3 race leads, Kolosiec is actually outside of drafting this, and he's outside of a second at least, all the way back to Smolajek, all the way down to the double yellow line there on the back straight, and perhaps hoping the NASCAR rules are in effect where you can't pass below that yellow line, but he will get the position defended up in towards the bus stop chicane for the GT3 P number 2, as I don't really like to see this, Stephen, because we've got Guido Santos just sort of in the mix in this GT3 chain. He does have credit to him, he does have a little bit of damage to that rear end and the right-hand side of that Ferrari. So this isn't his overall pace. He's not as slow as GT3s. It's just the way his car is, which is making him as slow as the GT3. So we can't rib on him too much there. Go on.
Well, I tell you, the one thing we can do is we can definitely give him credit, because he's not interfering with this battle in GT3. He's sitting there, he's being a casual observer in a true popcorn position. It's almost like watching a movie from a drive-in movie, so to speak. But, just giving them that space to battle is, that's a lot of racecraft right there.
Yeah, it is a lot of racecraft to be concerned about here in this one, as Ringrose will send it down towards the inside. He's not going to be all that kind with the traffic here today, and, well, he's not really involved in any battle, so I'm not entirely sure why he's deciding to send it down the inside of these bits of loud traffic, but that is just the case. That's just the way it's going to be right now. But Pros Albert versus Laubish, that battle will still continue for P number 3 in GTEs. Laubish looking to get himself ahead here, maybe in towards turn number 1. He's going to look to outside, maybe get the cutback move coming through turn number 1, as Albert, well, they have to get themselves slowed down to maintain that inside line, which is what we saw with, I think it was Constantini a little bit earlier on, just like hugging that inside line. It doesn't even seem to lose you that much time.
No, it doesn't, and it probably is because it tightens so much there at the last piece of the corner that even if you're on the outside line, it cuts back so hard, you're still going to have to cut down a lot of your speed to make that cut back.
We're on RaceSpotTV radio here for the RaceSpot TV or RaceSpot Radio primetime here on the Friday night, but we can get ourselves into radio commentary mode and describe the action in more detail than we otherwise would. But we've got 1:40 left to go on the clock, so that's around about 2.5 laps for these guys to sort out their differences. Carly Jansen leads the way by a decent margin, 8.4 seconds over Michele Constantini, with David Haynes P3 in Daytona prototypes. Antiola leading GTEs with Jan Senkowski, not really close enough to make a challenge in the last laps, with Giulio Pros Albert and Nicholas Laubich. That's one of the battles we've been watching for P3 in GTEs. But GT3s though, Klosziec still leading the way. Huge margin over Smolajik and the cars of Tom Mickelmore, Lois Goodway as well involved in that particular battle. So potentially P2 for GT3s, P3 for GTEs are going to be the final battles here today, as Giulia Pros Albert very, very, very slow on that pit straight, maybe trying to get themselves a little bit more fuel to finish off this race. Causes Laubich look to the outside down in towards turn number 1, but the move is unsuccessful. Laubich running out of time here. He has 1 lap to go in his particular race to try and gain this position, gain his place on that final step of the podium. 30 seconds on the clock now as it starts to take itself down. 25 seconds. Where is Carl Jansen? He's heading himself out of the infield right now, so looks like this is going to be the final lap of the race for everyone out there. But Laubich versus Albert, Smolajik versus Mickelmore, that's going to be the issue. But that latter battle has Mickelmore has just lost it for he's just lost the opportunity, for P2 in GT3. So that one isn't going to be a battle, but the battle is going to be Pros Albert versus Laubich. What can they do through the NASCAR turns? Then Laubich just has to tuck himself in and tuck himself right behind Pros Albert. But the thing is, they have a bus stop and a couple of NASCAR bankings to get themselves this battle sorted. But Carly Jansen, he's going to head his way towards the line to win in the Daytona prototypes here today. Yet another win at Daytona for Radicals Online. Pros Albert versus Laubich, though, they will take it through 3 and 4, but Laubich, is he close enough to get the draft pass across the line? Antiola is already coming up to the line right now to take the win in GTEs, but Laubich, does he have the momentum? He has a ton of overspeed coming up through the trioval. He'll look high and he will gain the position at the line, so that is going to be Laubich up into P3 by a good less than 1/10 of a second at the line. Absolutely fantastic stuff. We've still got to wait, though, for Soren Klosziec for GT3s, and the battle between Smolajik and Mickelmore, well, that one has spread time here at Daytona. He had a lot, and I mean a lot, of help from his teammate of Sasha Engelhardt, but Klosziec, it's motorsports, it's a team game sometimes, and Klosziec capitalizes on that to take P1, in GT3s, as Smolajik heads his way across the line. Fantastic race for him, finishing P2, and Lewis Goodway, Tom Mickelmore getting himself P3, Goodway P4 as well. And that is going to be it at Daytona for the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. And also, we are going to head our way through the results with no graphics. We're just going to describe them, but here they are. Carl E. Jansen wins in the Daytona prototypes, 8.3 seconds over second place runner Michele Constantini. Third step on the podium will go to David Haynes in the number 26, 15 seconds behind your race leader, with Daniel Johnson P4, P5 will go to Dennis Neidhart, with Stander Sethnal and Joseph Ringrose bringing things down to P7 in your Daytona prototype class. All of those finishing on the lead lap here today. Then in GTEs, Antiola holds his nerve at the front of the field, taking pole position, taking the race win as well in your GTE field. Jan Senkowski, P number 2, with P number 3 going to Nicholas Laubich right at the end there, only a tenth of a second separating himself, and Julia Pros Albert, who finishes P number 4. P number 5 will go to Cabanella with P6. Joel Guez, Mohamed Patel, P number 7, Michele D'Alessandro there in P number 8. P number 9, Bartolini, P10, Tim Graven, P number 11, Carl Becker with P12, Heroda, and P number 13 goes to Guido Yantos. Then we've got our retirees from GTEs, Antti Gorton, Thibaut Kazumon with fuel issues, Bruno Fontalba, Matteo Ugolotti, and Benjamin Gonzalez right at the bottom of the standings in GTEs as a result of a turn 1, lap 1 incident. Then in GT3s, Soren Kloziec wins from Smolajek from Tom Micklemore. That is going to be 1 through 3 in GT3s with Lewis Goodway, P number 4. P number 5 will go to Maturana with P6 to the stricken Sasha Engelhardt, but arguably Kloziec has the win here today because of Engelhardt's effort, or at least in part. But further back, you've got the final runners in your GT3 fields. Feroya, P number 7. Yannick Danish, P number 8. Moldolon, P number 9, with P number 10 going to Christian Boog. 11, Ari Demonen. P number 12, Della Hayes. P number 13, McRitchie. And P number 14 will go to Joao Oliveira, having his issues on the pit lane, reversing down it. But we will just gloss over that one as we will get ourselves all sorted and done with for the race. But join us in just a couple of moments while we'll be back for the post-race show driver interviews after this.
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing
Race lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside, and Tronke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though.
slide left of the racetrack. Chris Leonard drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact. He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cutback here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schubert, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Welcome to the post-race show for yet another week of RaceSpot Friday primetime here on the iRacing Esports Network for the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. This is the post-race show with myself, Connery Maddock, and of course, Stephen Burbage as well. We got to get ourselves a move on here, and we do have a race winner, the overall race winner in this entire race right now, the prototype winner as well. It is going to be the driver of Carl Janssen standing by with Stephen Burbage.
Well, Carl, that was a really tough first stint, and then you started getting breathing room to the end. It seemed like there was a little bit of pressure getting to you from Constantini. Walk us through that first half of the race.
Well, it's Daytona, so it's obviously going to be one of those tracks where you sit in the draft and save fuel for the whole first stint if you can. I don't know what more to say. The DP is very tricky in these conditions as well. You know, the tires goes off after like 2-3 laps, so after that you start to struggle very, very bad.
Yeah, it seemed like you were putting a little bit of a drift show before you went down the lane.
Yeah, I was playing around a little bit with the brake pads because I was locking up the inside wheels all the time. I just destroyed the front tires. I had to play around a little bit, and then sometimes I got it too much to rearwards, and then yeah, so a little bit of some setup work in the race, I guess.
Well, you know, adjusting on the fly is one of the challenges of this series, and it seemed like you got it figured out in the second half and were able to get a nice lead. What was it, over 8 seconds? So, congratulations to you. Before we let you go, any shout-outs, thank yous?
Yeah, to all our sponsors, Cranfield Simulation, Joel Real Timing, Arma Centrum, Asta Sim Race, MOATF, Turn Racing, Simortal, and Six Sideways, and then also for my teammates for helping me build the setup.
Well, thank you very much, Carl. Connery, back to you.
Carl Jansen yet again taking a race win at Daytona for Radicals Online. And, well, Radicals, very much a Daytona specialist here, taking the race win in the Daytona 24 hours earlier this year. They do it yet again this week in the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. But we do have another race winner. This time it's going to be Antti Ahola there in the commentary booth. We'll get him up here. It's a race win for you, Antti. How are you feeling?
Surprised.
Surprised is definitely a word. Were you not expecting that coming into this one with how many good names that we have in that field?
No, because in a couple of practice servers before the race, I was watching the red face guys in a Ferrari going 1 to 3 kilometers per hour faster than me in a straight line coming to turn 1, and I was a couple of tenths slower also in the practice service, so it's quite a surprise.
Very much a surprise for you to qualify so far forward as well, especially if that was the deficit that you were working with. But on lap 1, turn number 1, there was a bit of drama at the front of that GTE field with Thibaut Casabon spinning around Benjamin Gonzalez, and it did give you, I guess, a little bit more of a gap, a little bit more track position to work with than you otherwise wouldn't, because Gonzalez, he was perhaps going to be one of your main challengers in this race, and he went out very early. So how much did that factor in?
Of course, it made my life a little bit easier, but knowing as it's Daytona, it's really hard to pull away. So it's a 50-60 situation, I'd say.
Yeah, and how was the fuel situation? Because we've seen a couple of drivers have an issue with that. We saw Thibaut Casabon actually running out of fuel after trying to go one extra lap on his stint. How was the fuel situation for you out there? Did you have a set strategy coming in, or were you able to find that maybe a lap or so more fuel with saving behind other cars?
Well, actually, I overfueled.
You overfueled the car for the start.
Yeah. So the fuel situation was quite great coming to the end, so I was able to just push all along.
Oh, it's all right for some, isn't it? You get yourself pole position, find you overfueled the car, so you don't have to worry too much about the fuel situation. But heading into the final race of the season as well, we're going to head to Monza for the season finale, and Monza is always a absolutely fantastic historic track as well, and it's all the same situation there with how long you spend on 100% throttle. So the low downforce situation is going to be a thing again, and even though you drive a car that's not as good as the Ferrari in a straight line, do you still have a chance at Monza, especially with what happened here today?
Yeah, it's a track I like a lot, and I have a good setup there. So as long as I can just do the race, it should go well, I hope. But knowing that Monza turn 1 shenanigans, so you never know.
You never know for the final round of the season. But Antti, is there anyone you want to give thanks to?
Yeah, big shout out to RaceSpot for doing the awesome Friday night broadcast, and thank you to Vanderbilt Sim Racing for the backup.
And also, since I do have to say this, congratulations on Finland for winning the iRacing World Cup. But us at the UK, we'll get it at some point. But Finland doing very, very well in that particular competition. But thank you very much for joining us, Antti. So we have a couple more drivers to talk about, so we'll go through them pretty quickly. We've got Michele Constantini for that is going to be in your Daytona prototypes, finishing P number 2. So that's going to be Stephen Burbage standing by with Michele Constantini.
Well, Michele, that was kind of a heartbreak when you came down the lane today, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That's most likely where I lost the race today. In the first stint, I had the pace to match Carl's lap times. I saved a lot of fuel behind him in the first stint, and actually, other than the sliding through the pit stall, I also put a click too much fuel in. I actually took the same amount of fuel as Carl, but I could have taken a click less of that. So that's probably where I lost the race today, because the pace was all season. But I had an old setup for the Daytona 24 earlier this year that we made with the 1050 guys. And so I took the chance and showed up for today. And actually Daytona could be actually a good baseline for Monza as well, so I might show up for that as well.
Well, hopefully we'll see you. Before we let you go, any shout-outs or thank yous?
Sure, I would like to thank my team, 1050 Barbarina Racing, for the help with the setup and the support in general. Big shout-out to Matteo, who unfortunately had technical issues during the race in the GTE class. And big thanks to you guys for the broadcast as always.
Well, thank you, Miguel, and we'll see you hopefully next week.
See you.
Well then, Michele Constantini finishing P number 2 in your Daytona prototypes, and going to be a little bit hurt by that mistake on pit lane. That basically gave up the race lead, but we do have 2 more drivers to get ourselves into the commentary booth. We have RaceSpotTV's own and SimSpeed TV's own David Haynes here. Since every time we bring you into the commentary booth, David, you do make the point of mentioning it, I've got in before you this time.
You're clever and you're only getting smarter. But, yeah, good racing, and I gotta represent. You know how it is.
I do very much know how it is, but it is a P number 3 here for you today after starting in P number 3 as well. How is your race out there today with the sort of, being kind of a bit of no man's land? Because you were a good couple of seconds behind Michele Constantini, and you were many more seconds ahead of Daniel Johnson. So was it a lonely time out there today?
It was a little bit lonely until we got to the GT traffic, and then there was plenty of that to keep you thinking. But yeah, you're right, I didn't quite manage to stay with the draft of those 2 guys. They had a good battle going on, and then I was just sort of thinking about my own strategy, stayed out longer than them, and it just worked out for me a little bit. I got a teeny bit closer off the pit stops, but yeah, not quite in that league.
Not quite there to challenge P number 1 and 2, but it was a very, very admirably run race from you today, just getting yourself, getting those qualifying laps in, getting the consistent race pace as well. Even though it wasn't fast enough to challenge the top guys, you still had a very solid race with not too many issues, and that one, can be a surprise sometimes in this IMSA series with how much carnage goes on, especially in the process of traffic lapping.
Yeah, exactly. And anytime you're coming up past, for example, the GTEs, they are just so ferociously entwined in their own battles that you got to be careful where and how you surprise them getting by them. But I think my goal before this race was just put a whole lap on the entire GTE field, and I managed to achieve that by just not really having any issues, quick pit stop, and relatively pacey. I honestly expected someone like Carl Jansen to be a lot further ahead of me than he was.
Daytona, one of the great equalizer tracks then. You probably have to argue as the drill, David. Any thanks?
You guys, RaceSpot, big love. Obviously SimSpeed TV, my own guys at Team Huge Ass, our HJ Tsukuba 3 hours. coming up really soon. Excited for that one, and that's about it.
That will be about it. We've got a driver just waiting that didn't have the best of races, it can argue, in the Daytona prototype. Says very, very, very quickly, Stephen. A couple of questions to Joseph.
Well, Joseph, it was like a challenging race, and that battle in the back was quite intense. What was it that you gained from that experience this round that you can apply for the final next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely a very difficult race, as you said. At first stint, I was battling with them, and my pace just wasn't there today. Yeah, not really much else to say. Hopefully, can apply some of the battling at Monza. It's on a better track for me, so hopefully can improve there.
Well, definitely improvement is key with any series. And Joseph, before we let you go, any shout-outs, thank yous?
Yeah, just thanks to the team and our sponsors, and thank you guys for broadcasting.
Well, there we go. Joseph Ringrose Fair. Not the best of finishes, P number 7 in your Daytona prototype field, but we were pretty quick through that one. Sorry about the issues at the end of the race, guys, but that is going to be the end of round number 11 at Daytona for the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. I've been Connery Maddock. Stephen Burbage with me in the commentary booth as well, and we've got Hugo Luis on the cameras directing. He had a nightmare race, shall we say, for this one, but we can get those issues recovered. We can get those things sorted for next week at Monza for the season finale here in the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. Join us then, because you definitely do not want to miss that one. Goodbye.